Welcome back. Now in this tutorial we will learn about joint probability, conditional probability and marginal probability. We'll discuss all three of them and we'll see the differences, and we will also learn them from examples. So these are probability types: joint probability, conditional probability, marginal probability. Now let's see the difference. We'll start with joint probability. So for example, you have this question: people who like football and rugby and others game. How many are male and how many are female? So there are 120 people who are male and like football. 100 people are male and like rugby. Altogether, we have 500 people. Altogether, females, we have 230. And altogether, males, we have 270. If we plus 270 plus 230, we will get 500. Okay. Now, let's understand what is the joint probability. People who are male and like football is 0.24. How did we got the answer? If you divide 120 by 500 by total population size, you will get the joint probability male who like football. Now, if you want to know female who like rugby, same way, how many females we have? 25. And how many like rugby they like 25 people, 25 females. So we divide 25 by 500 and we will get the answer 0.05. That's how simple is that. The total sum of all the probability, joint probability, is always equals to 1. So when you're solving this question and having a problem, in the end, just sum up 0.39, 0.25, 0.36, you will get 1. 0.54 plus 0.46 equals to 1. If your answer is not equals to 1, you must have made some mistake. That's how simple is that to calculate joint probability. So when we are talking about joint probability, we are talking about two variables. So one variable is this and the other variable is this. So football A, for example, male B, A and B. Now let's understand this by definition. Joint probability is a statistical measure that calculates the likelihood of two events. Like I discussed, male and football, further says occurring together. Is it possible that there are male and nothing to do with football? It won't happen. So in joint probability, you will always have two events occurring together. So for example, males are watching football, males are liking football, females are playing football. So you will have two events. One is female, other is football. At the same time, point in time. Joint probability is probability of event Y occurring at the same time that event X occurs. So event Y was male, event X is football, they both occurring together. That's the joint probability definition, the basic definition. And the sum will always be equals to 1 for joint probability. Sometime in exams, you will have questions where the joint probability is given, or sometime they will ask you to calculate. If they ask you to calculate, they will give you the data. So this is the data. Yeah. This data can be in diagram form. This data can be in the question form, in the subjective form, that there are 120 males playing football and 75 females playing football. The total sample size is 500, or they even don't give you that total sample size, but you know when you will sum them up, it should be your sample size, and when you will do the joint probability, that should be equals to 1. Now, the formula for this is the joint probability is symmetrical, meaning that male and football equals to probability of football and male. This is a very basic concept, and remember this concept forever. In joint probability, male and football will always be equals to. So if we write it, it will be like this: probability of A and B is always equals to probability of B equals to A, B and A. Sorry, this writing over here is not easy with the mouse, but this is what I mean, that A and B will always equals to probability of B and A, because the answer won't change. It's like it depend on each other, yeah, like male and football. If it's not depending, then it's something else. We'll discuss that further. Now let's understand with the marginal probability. The marginal means, as you know the name, marginal. So it's always, remember this, margin. Whatever is occurring in the margin is your marginal probability. So 0.24 plus 0.15. When you sum this up, this is your marginal probability. Marginal probability of football. Marginal probability of rugby, for example. 0.2 plus 0.05 is equals to 0.25. Now let's see with the definition. In probability theory and statistics, the marginal distribution of a subset of a collection of random variables is the probability distribution of the variables contained in the subset. It gives the probabilities of various values of the variables in a subset without reference to the values of the other variables. This contrasts with conditional distribution, which gives the probability contingent upon the values of the other variable. You won't be able to remember this definition, but what you can remember is very simple. Whatever you have, so you have a distribution. When you calculate the joint distribution, yeah, the total of it, the sum of that, is your marginal probability. It will come in the margin. Anything which comes in the margin is marginal probability. And the total marginal probability, the sum of total marginal probability, is always equals to 1. The fun fact of marginal probability is that all the marginal probabilities appears in the margin. How cool is that? Hence, the probability of female is 0.46, which completely ignores the sport the female prefer. And the probability of rugby is 0.25, which completely ignores the gender. Now, let's start with the conditional probability. Conditional probability is defined as the likelihood of an event or outcome occurring based on the occurrence of the previous event and outcome. Conditional probability with the name, you know the name, yeah, condition. Whenever you see the condition depending on the previous outcome, that's a conditional probability. The formula for conditional probability is probability of A given B is equals to probability of A and B. So this is your joint probability. This is your joint probability. So you put your joint probability on top and you divide that by probability of B. If I'm doing this formula for probability of B given A, in that way, I'll write probability of A at the bottom. The best way to remember is whatever is appearing over here, throw it in the bottom. So probability of like joint probability divided by probability of B, whatever it is given. That's what you will put. Now let's see with the formula and we'll do the example on it. Conditional probability is defined as likelihood of an event or outcome occurring based on the occurrence of previous event or outcome. If we want to calculate the probability that a person would like rugby, given that they are female, we must take the joint probability that the person is female and likes rugby. and divided by the probability of the condition. In this case, the probability is that given person is a female, which we can work out from the margin to be 0.46. Hence, we get 0.11. Let's write up to nearer. So, for example, probability of female and rugby. Probability of female given rugby equals to 0.05. Probability of female is 0.46. The formula is 0.05 divided by 0.46. So, probability of rugby given female. Like I said, so what we did, probability of rugby given female. If we go back, the probability of rugby was 0.25. Okay, that's a different question. 0.05. Okay, probability of 0.05. Yeah. So over here, yeah, 0.05 probability of rugby divided by 0.046. That's your marginal probability of female. So given female, this. So this divided by this. If we continue to fill the probability of preferring sports given the observant is a female, then we would have a conditional probability distribution. So this is what the difference between conditional probability, joint probability, and marginal probability. The best way is you will have a data. For example, you try to create your joint distribution. This is how you create your joint distribution. It's very simple. Whatever you have, divide that by total sum, the population size. You will get the joint distribution, and your joint distribution will equals to 1. Then to marginal probability, whatever is coming in the end of your joint distribution, over here, for example, this is all your marginal probability. And to find out the conditional probability, in that way, you will put your joint distribution, joint probability, whatever you have found, divide that by given probability of B. Over here, we have given probability of B. This is how you will solve this problem. We'll discuss this further in more examples. We'll do more examples so we can understand this in different perspective, because this is just the start. This is just the basic. So we'll end up over here. We'll come back later to start with another lecture.